Good evening, thanks for coming. I feel like I don't need the microphone. Hi, my name's Carpenter, welcome, thank you for coming. Tonight we wanted to invite a whole lot of our landlords here for two reasons really. One is that the Healthy Home legislation is on us, with fair bit to come, and unlike some of the more simple legislations like the insulation one, which you've all already dealt with, which was quite simple, there's a little bit more to the Healthy Homes legislation, and so I wanted to give you some information on that so that you understand. I mean, you don't need, as I was talking to this chap here before, you don't actually need to know anything about it because we've got it covered, but it makes it easier when we're calling you up saying we need to do certain things that you might not have a little understanding of what it's about. And the second reason for it was that as our business is growing, we needed to expand our management team. We had the choice of taking on a department head on salary. Being an owner-operator, I don't like the idea of having too many employees, and I don't like the idea of getting bigger but not better. And so we went looking for a business partner. Again, as we grew, the idea of being a generalist and me and Lauren running the sales team and the property management division was okay when we were a small business. But as we get bigger, it's not going to be giving the property management division the attention that it would deserve. So again, part of our reason to go looking for a business partner. And to add to that, part of the necessity to not just get an employee to be a department head, but to get a business partner, was that with legislation like this coming in, property management is becoming more and more specialised. I've been a landlord since I was 21, so that's 4 years. How long has it been, Mother? 28, 27 years I've been a landlord, and I think we've had more legislative changes in the last 3 years than we did in the previous 24. And you could buy a property and manage it yourself, and that was no problem. And it's a good and bad situation for us. There's a lot of legislation coming in, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot to know, which is both trying and challenging for the business at times, but it's also good for business, I guess, because it means that people need property managers more and more. And going forward with the amount of legislative changes, it's going to become harder and harder to be a private landlord. Good evening, welcome. Okay. So it's going to become harder and harder to be a private landlord. So we wanted you to have two reasons. One's to let you know that we've got your back, and that as we grow, we've got good people, and that we'll be looking after your properties well, and we understand what's going on. And two, on that note, to introduce our new business partner, Mark. And on that note, I'll just get going. And we've got a few other speakers. We've got Jason here, who is our insurance broker, and is going to talk to you about what to look out for in your insurance policies, because there's certain things, again, as the legislation goes on and as things get a little bit more difficult, your insurance policies need to be right. You don't want to find out at claim time that this thing's missing. We've got Bex here, who's our wonderful mortgage broker, who we love so much and is the miracle worker. And so if you're looking for finance for your next investment or to refinance your current ones, Bex will do wonders for you. And then we've got our favourite lawyer, Nick Kearney from Schnarr & Co., who's going to back up what Mark says and add a little bit to it about the legislation stuff that's coming in. So, Mark Kelly, our new business partner, Mark's job is to take a really boring subject and make it interesting. That's his challenge. No pressure, Mark, but I'll leave you in Mark's hands.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Does this work? Works on nothing except what it's supposed to.
Oh, Lauren will say it.
I'll say it.
Works on that, won't work on the other.
Yeah, no, it would work on the next thing, but maybe not.
Okay.
Right, just click yourself through.
Okay, thanks for giving me this opportunity. This is really dry, this stuff, but we go on to the next screen.
You've got the clicker.
I've got the clicker.
Yeah, so press the arrow.
Press the arrow, that one.
There you go.
Hello and welcome. There you go. Cool.
And again.
Okay.
And again.
Yep, cool. Okay, this is pretty much come from the tenancy services. I don't know a lot about tenancy services. I've been specifically in property management, residential property management for about 6 years. A little bit like Glenn, bought my first rental property in the late 80s. Should have kept it, okay. There are 5 areas, okay, there are 5 on my line, there are 6 areas, regarding the new regs from the government, healthy home standards. It's to do heating, insulation, ventilation, moisture ingress, drainage, and draft stopping, okay? It's real basic stuff, and probably we as reasonable landlords are bearing the brunt of 40 years of major governments just leaving this field to I don't know, cowboys, slum landlords, etc. These regulations, while they might not have a huge impact in Auckland, if you've got a dodgy flat in Dunedin or Christchurch or South Auckland, then they're going to have a huge impact. I was doing some work, or just investigating some work with the Housing Court about 2005, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Speaking to one of their project managers, and he just said, oh yeah, we've got this rented down at such and such, and there's a family in the house, and there's another two or another family in the garage. That was Housing Court. And I said, what? And he said, we don't ask. Okay? He said, basically every Housing Court home then had a family living in the garage. Okay? And you can guarantee in South Auckland that that's where a lot of this push has come. But we're all tarred by the same brush. To be a landlord, it's not a great thing these days, according to the government. The heating, we've got to bring it up. Basically, you got to hit, be able to. Oh my God! There you go. Don't come back. There it is.
It's a good thing you're good at this legislation stuff, because you're rubbish at technology.
Ventilation.
Heating,
there you go. Okay. Heating capacity to heat the main living room at least 18 degrees Celsius. There's no requirement yet from the government to put any specific type of heating in your homes, in your properties, in your units, in your houses, as far as rental properties go. Okay, they've come out with a calculator, which basically works out the metric area of it, the cubic meter area of it, and how much kilowatts of heating power you're going to have to put in your property. We don't know what that is at the moment. The bottom line on heating is do nothing yet. Okay, there was a big push to get heat pumps put in all rental properties. They've stepped away from that. Okay, but we do not know today, nor does the government know today, what the heating requirement is. Okay, and we need to know in about 2 years. Okay, 2021, which I'll address later. The insulation, well, that's been coming pretty much, hopefully all of our properties that we manage, the insulation requirements have been upgraded and adhered to. From pretty much from July this year, you have had to have insulation up to the requirements of the 2008 building code. And if it's already in there prior to that, 120 mils, okay, in the ceilings. You don't need it in the side walls. If it was built without insulation, you don't have to upgrade it. Okay, it's just that easily accessible space. If you can get into the ceilings, you can get under the house, it needs to be insulated. It should have been done told we're waiting on a couple to go in, but other than that, I think we've got about 99% of our homes insulated.
Interesting, Mark, that we have in our group of landlords here. Lauren, can you fill us in on that? We've got a really high rate of compliance.
All of our properties are insulated.
They're all done now.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we've got a couple that are pending because of moisture under the ground that'll have to be done in summer, but they're booked in and paid for. So, yeah.
That's outstanding, because there's a huge number of rental portfolios and private landlords that are only about 50% compliant,
Yeah.
so well done on you.
Yeah.
It's you guys that have done it, we just
Yeah.
made the phone calls.
Yeah. And the bugbear with the heating, from what I've seen with the calculator, and a lot of homes built like this where you have open plan living with the kitchen, the lounge, and if you've got upstairs and you can't cut it off, my understanding of the calculator is that they're going to count that whole unenclosed area. So just some FYI, if you're doing renovations or whatever, if you can close it off, and I think it's sort of a fault in some of our designs. I've always, like houses I've built and gone into, I've always put a sliding door in so you can have this sort of little heated area that you can heat economically.
So what are they saying, the bedrooms then don't have to be?
No, the bedrooms don't, just the major living area. But if the living area is open plan and opens onto a corridor or opens onto stairs that you can't chop off or close onto the door, then from what I'm reading, they're reading the area of the stairs and also the hallway upstairs. And what that means is the grunt of the heater you put in has got to have the ability to do that, and it's on a metric area, so it's on some type of arithmetical calculation that we won't have much say in, but we will have to react to, and that will be on the size of the heater that you put in. Okay, so. Okay, moving on. Ventilation. Pretty basic stuff. The windows are open. Must be at least 5% of the floor area of that space. I don't really know what happens if it's not 5%. My experience with government and law is that if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. They don't make you undertake expensive renovations. You know, like to throw I've renovated for years, but to throw an extra. What it costs to throw a window in, you know, clean, so not cheap anyway. So it's, you know, it's major stuff, and that's why they backed away with the insulation as well. That's the moisture ingress underneath the house. If this is the house here, this is the floor, and it's got a subfloor, okay, and it's on piles. Then you've got to get in and put a plastic sheet basically on the ground. To stop the moisture coming up. I think it's fraud, I really do. I just, people are going to put their lawnmowers under there, the cats are going to go under there. But that's where they're coming from at the moment. Goes around in circles, ventilation, they want, you're supposed to ventilate the properties, you're supposed to heat them to a certain degree. And then they're complaining about the cost of power as well. But we go on. Drainage, I mean, if the property has got a CCC, it's just obvious stuff. But when you've been living in a garage and it hasn't had drainage, hasn't had gutters, hasn't had downpipes, that's where this is coming from. And there are places like that, unfortunately. Draft stopping, again, it's common sense, but again, if you've got families living in garages, and a lot of this is pushing it towards an illegal homes, if they haven't got CCs, it's the bottom 5% that are targeting a lot of this stuff, but we all have to upgrade. Compliance timeframes, okay, we should probably start this one first. That's just the insulation. No, it's not. It's a healthy homes. We've got to have on all of our leases, we've got to have a statement saying that they're going to apply with the healthy homes, and that in any renewed, varied leases that we're going to incorporate that schedule into new leases. That's pretty redundant. Again, the time frames up here, the 1st of July 2021. All private landlords must ensure that the rental within 90 days of any or renewed tenancy. So if you've got a property now and it doesn't change over, okay, there's sort of a grey area as to whether you have to upgrade. But once you get to 2021, if your tenant changes over on August 2021, you've got to upgrade. You've got to be upgraded by then. And that's the gist of it. And sitting here in 2024, that's just all rental homes must comply. There's a few other bits on housing court homes, boarding houses and stuff. But as we're sitting here today, the big one is heating. We don't know what the criteria is. We don't know what the specifications are. So the line is do nothing at this stage. Yes, we're going to have to do something, but yet we don't know where the goalposts are. And but the feedback we're getting with owners, to spread it out a bit, it came under the, I think it was the Healthy Homes Act of 1948. Okay, do you know, Nick, on your
Yeah, that's right, 1948,
Yeah,
and there's actually, regulations, what are they called? The living standard regulations of about 1920 or something?
Yeah. That 1948, like, no one had electric heaters.
Yeah.
Then you had the form of heating was an open fire. Now they're saying if you've got an open fire, unless the tenant wants it, you've literally got to block it off. You know, you've got to fill it up. So, and then, Healthy Home Standards, 1945, the Home Improvement Act, the Housing Improvement Act has been repealed. The Home Improvement Regulations have subsisted from there.
That's the one, yeah.
And under that, the central government pushed it back to the local governments. Auckland City Council, we used to be North Shore, Waitemata, Henderson, Now it's Auckland City Council, and they have to enforce it. They've said, thanks, don't want to enforce it as far as we're concerned. If you've got electricity running to your living room, you are providing heating. Okay, you plug in an electric heater. So that's where we are at the moment. It's legal, but it's going to change. We don't know what it's going to change to, and I'm repeating myself there. Okay, that's basically it there. I want to run through and we've got, okay, we've just, main force, we've done that.
There it is.
Okay, case study discounting rent, okay, we'll go back one more. Okay, rental arrears, okay. I presume all of you guys here have lost rental over the years with rental arrears? No?
Yes.
Okay, 50-50. May, could you stand up please? May's just called in, she's one of my managers, please sit, okay? Sit down, mate. She's one of my managers over in Albany, don't need to embarrass her, okay? We've run that for 6 years, 7 years, okay? On average, we've got had 75 properties, we've got loads now down around the high 50s. The average rent was probably been about $430 over the 7 years, up around 500 now, 52 weeks. By 7 years, we've collected 11 million in rental, okay? And we have lost, okay? If you lost 1% of your 11 million, you'll be chewing up 117,000, okay? We have lost, in the 7 years, we have lost $2,500 in arrears of rental. Okay, and that's May's been with us, May and John's been with us for two and a half, coming up to 3 years. We've had good managers there. That's a good rental market. And I'm not, if you rattle that through, 2,500 over 11 million is 0.02%. Okay, so where's Jason, the insurance guy? It should be an insurance, it's a good gun. Now, we've got a few tricks are the wrong word, but we've got a few strategies. We like to push our rentals. Is this being telecast?
Yes.
Okay, where's the thing? Okay. We like to have the anniversary of our rentals in January or February. The market is the most strong there, okay? And we like to give, if we sign up tenants now, we give them an option. We like to give them a 5-6 month fixed term tenancy till January, February, and then we extend it for another 12 months automatically at the tenant's behest. They have got the chance to go, we can't move them on, and if they recommit, they recommit for another 12 months. Okay, and that's we like long-term tenants, okay, and for that reason. We really pay a lot of attention to the references. We would prefer you guys not to rent to people who don't have good credit checks, who don't have good work history. We can't ask about their work history now, but there's a place on our form when they apply that they can give that information, and that they can give any information, a tenant can give any information to you that they want voluntarily. And we like to have, Lauren was at an open home viewing today. We got everyone to come at 4 o'clock, so when you've got 5 people turning up at 4 o'clock, it creates a little bit of competition, urgency. So the people who give us the most information on their tenancy forms, we try to check their cars, see they've got a warrant, see they're registered. They don't have to tell us they're working, but we're more than happy if they volunteer that information, and we can't demand it, but we can accept it. Okay, and what we have found, okay, and that's why. Okay, what we've found with that, okay, with that low rental arrears, quality tenants, put their time in up front, get quality tenants. It makes our job a lot easier, but they don't turn over. The best rental property you can have is one that's vacant. Okay, but it doesn't work that well. Okay, now is there another? Careful study rental arrears. Where is there? Okay, discounting rental over at Albany, just roughly speaking, the rental there at the moment is $490 to $500. Okay, we have consistently been in the top quartile of rentals in that Albany market for 2 beds. Okay, now the top quartile is 400 to 500, probably 475 to 500. Okay, and the next $25 down is the second to highest quartile, and then $25 down, and $25 down. You don't get many properties in Albany for less than $400. Okay, so it's that top quartile. There's a spread there. So if we're in the top quartile, okay, and we're not getting any traction, which means we haven't rented it within, I don't know, a week. Okay, we've got 2 choices: keep it on at $490, or drop the rental down to $468. Okay, it's bringing it looks massive. Okay, so but if you bring it down, you're allowed to increase the rental in 6 months if you want to. Okay, and so if you're there and you decide, okay, let's discount the rental, it only remains vacant for another week. Okay, or it goes straight away. This remains vacant for 2, 3, or 4 weeks, but just say 2 weeks, only on 2 weeks. Okay, there's the arithmetic on it. Okay, you lose $980 in 2 weeks. Okay, you get it tenanted for the next 24 weeks. Okay, at the 6 month, then you probably wouldn't put rental on there. Down here at $468. Okay, after a week you've got it tenanted 25 weeks until the next 6 months goes up, and you can put the rental up to wherever the market is. It might be $490, it might be between there, or not if you've got a good tenant. But that's what I say to my guys: don't be afraid. Do the math, run the numbers. Okay, and what we find, we've got guys in there. I've got a guy who used to manage for, and he looks after his own properties. Skites about his market rentals. They're often vacant for 3, 4, 5 weeks, and we've got some pressure on him last week to get rid of the guy with tattoos on the motorbike. So if this is above market, and the market's down around 480, you'll get it rented. The quality of your tenant will not be as good. You drop it down to 480 and 468 or around there, just a little bit off, then your choice of tenants is way better. And there are only 3 rules that I can see in property, in good property management, good properties. You've got to get fair market rental, okay, around that. We like to be in the top quartile all the time, okay, between 470 and 490. If 490 is the top rental, we're usually at 480. Your tenants pay on time, and when they leave, there's no damage, okay. And the same with this here, okay, well, the previous one, we got that, okay. The $2,500, there's probably $1,000 worth of damage in those units. We get good tenants there. It's Albany. It's it's a different market than here. I don't know this market, but that's what we rise and fall on. I'm loath to have put this up because I hope we don't get a run of arrears or rentals in the next few weeks, few months. But we do know what we're doing, and it's May and John over there. So thanks very much. We'll hand over to Jason.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, are there any questions? That's what I need to do.
Question. Can you explain the new laws around taking tenants to the tribunal for damage to the property?
Yeah, Jason will elaborate. We've chatted about this before, okay? And again, I think it's the Property Law Act 2007,
Yep.
Section 259.
The insurance provision, yeah.
Yeah, the insurance provision.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Okay.
It used to kind of only apply to commercial leases. Well, that was the kind of the thinking, but it's been expanded into
Right,
tenants.
right, yeah. If you think of your property insurance or your rental insurance now, the same as your car insurance, okay? You've got a car, your son, your daughter, your mate drives it, they crash it, they're covered, okay? You've got a rental property, your tenant, I don't know, spills a boiling pot of oil or whatever and it's near the heater and you get a fire, okay, and the idiot things I think that Jason was referring to, the tenant's covered, okay, he's in there with your permission, and it's not stupidity. Intentional damage, okay, if he gets out a spray, a gas axe and zaps everything or puts huge holes in the wall, then that voids the insurance. He's not covered. Don't think it voids your insurance, but Jason will elaborate on that. So that's intentional damage. It's like your car insurance. Your son drives it and he's full of booze. He's not covered.
Well, insurance only covers accidents. So an intentional act is not an accident.
Yeah, but I've never heard a tenant yet who told me that they it was their fault that they damaged something. And it's like you got your car insurance, okay, you're driving along the highway, if you do a U-turn on State Highway 1 and drive in the opposite direction, chances are your insurance isn't going to cover you. That's intentional stupidity. And that's pretty much all that has changed, that the tenants now have the benefit of your insurance if you're insured. Okay, we have to give those details in our lease agreements. So, any further questions? And Jason, yes?
Yeah. On the making sure that the data using which is income, like the prospect tenant income, he has to be voluntary. You are not supposed to ask him, no?
Correct. Yeah.
So how? The first thing is we want to make sure that he will be able to pay.
Yep.
So how we demonstrate it? Doesn't he has any onus to demonstrate it, or?
If they don't have to give it to us, okay, but we don't have to accept them.
Okay, that's the only right we have.
Yeah, and another thing, that we don't have to accept them, okay.
So like references?
Yeah, no, we check references. We don't like references from mates, the guys have been on the booze with us or stuff like that. We like references from peers, where they workmates. We can say, okay, we get a reference from your workmate. We're allowed to ask that.
Remember, you can ask like pay slip thing or bank statement. No.
No, you can't ask for it.
Okay.
So that's that $2,500. You do digging, you get quality tenants.
Can I just elaborate on that a little bit? So we've got a system we use called TPS, which we pay quite good money for, and it's there's a lawyer in the background that makes sure the documentation we use is in accordance with the law at the time. And so that application form actually does ask the question, who your employer is, and your income per week from all sources. And so the tenant is obliged to answer that question. What they don't have to provide is proof of that income. So in the past, we were able to ask for bank statements that showed not just their income but their expenditure to make sure that there wasn't an imbalance there. You're not allowed to ask for that anymore. It's completely illegal. They can volunteer that. So there is underneath that section on our TPS application form that asks for income per week from all sources. It does ask for any supporting documents that you'd like to upload. And so it indicates that they're welcome to upload that document. And we still do get some tenants that upload that information, bank statements, employer reference letters, work visas, that sort of thing. We don't ask for it, but it indicates that we like that type of thing. And so more often than not, tenants will provide enough information for us to make an informed decision about whether or not they're appropriate.
Yeah, because I remember when I came in this country and I rented, the first thing I go on, they asked me,
Statements.
how you pay?
Correct.
I said, okay, here it is.
Yes.
So it makes sense,
Yeah.
because if I'm going to get something, I should be able to pay for that.
Yeah, understood. And so we've got ways that we work around that. So, for example, I rented 2 properties today, and at one of them there was quite a lot of competition, and so we talked through the application process, and I encouraged them to upload as many supporting documents as they could to put them in the front running position. And so they did. They provided those statements and information that we can't legally ask for, but we can certainly indicate that it would be helpful in the process. And anybody that has nothing to hide is very comfortable providing that information, and we're always wary of people that tell us that they're refusing to provide that information, or that we're not allowed to check their references until we've offered them the property. We automatically know that they've got something to hide, and we just look for something else or someone
It's not a
else.
flex. I mean, the moment somebody
Correct. It's just common sense, and we find that because our job is to build rapport instantly with the people that we're meeting when we are showing them homes. So it's that relationship building process. Very quickly, our goal is to build trust and rapport, and we do find that those tenants that are genuine tenants will connect with us and provide us the information we need without conflict. So on the whole, it works.
Right, any other queries? I'll hand over to Jason if there's not. Thanks for your time, guys. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Mark.
You try to listen to you.
Was it too boring?
No.
The legislative stuff? I was trying to give him a hard time, but you're backing him up. Jason Bailey has been in insurance for about 400 years. 30 something years. And he's going to tell you some stuff about what to look out for in your policy, because things have changed, and a little bit of that already. And after that, we're going to hear from Bex and then Nick. Nick, you seem to be quite good at throwing out there. Do you actually know that stuff, or do you just know dates and stuff, which makes it sound like you know that stuff?
No, what's that?
The legislations and the dates and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the legislation around new residential tenancy stuff hasn't even been drafted yet. It's still in discussion document stage, but they did pass an act about a month and a half ago to do with insurance, which basically says the tenant has to pay. Well, I think the insurance excess or 4 weeks rent, whichever is the lesser if they cause intentional damage.
Right, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Jason,
that was in August, I think, but I mean, it's same with, Parliament passes laws every day. It's difficult to give up sometimes.
it's your job. Jason, all right, you can fill us in on more than that. Here you go. Do you need the clicker, or are you just going to talk?
I'll use the clicker.
Then I suggest you summon Lauren.
Yeah. Just that way.
Yeah, keep going, it should be there. There you
There we go.
Easy.
Just a bit about me. I've 33 years in insurance. 28 years of those were with Vero Insurance. So I was an underwriter in an insurance company for most of that time. And for the last 5 years, we've run our own company, JB Insure, Jason Bailey, so pretty simple. That's kind of our website. We are commercial specialists. There is heavy competition in the domestic market, but we perceive rental properties as commercial business. Okay, it's just like our customers. We have a lot of customers with over 10 rental properties, and they want somebody to look after it, just like you use a property manager to look after your tenants and so forth. So that's the kind of service that we offer. So today, what I kind of wanted to do is just run through a few things that if you do your insurance yourself, that you need to be aware of. If you use a broker, you can always use these things as well. So these are two insurance companies we use. Ando, a lot of people haven't heard of them. They've been going for 3 years and they now have a turnover over $200 million. Lumley General, a lot of people know Lumley, got sold out to IAG, which is NZI. The executive of Ando Insurance, they turned around and went, well, we don't want to go to NZI. They went, if we're going to create an insurance company, let's get a bit of white paper and create it. So they've really ticked the box, and from scratch in 3.5 years, they now have premiums over 200 million. They specifically deal with brokers. That's why a lot of you probably haven't heard of them. These are some of the covers that you should be looking for. Meth is still there. It's kind of dying a bit of a death because there was a bit of henny penny. We associate with a lot of Australians. They were really worried about clandestine labs, but they weren't worried about the guy that was smoking in the armchair watching a movie. They'd get a bit of sugar soap and clean it, and that was okay to clear them there. We're getting some sensibility back into the market, but there's still 50,000 limits with the two companies that we mainly deal with on rental properties. That's pretty standard in the market. Some will be 30,000, and because the market average used to be 30, because it's kind of becoming a just another issue, some of them have increased it now to 50,000. The other one there, loss of rent, alternative accommodation. That's when the fat fire in the kitchen and the property's burnt down and your tenant turns around and goes, where am I going to live? And you've got, and your mortgage will still needs to be covered. So things like that should be covered. Malicious intentional damage, there is cover for when your tenants go nuts in the properties. The caveat is look at the policy wording and look at the warranties that relate to it. You've got to be inspecting the properties regularly, and there's got to be documented notes, which the property manager can take care of for you. Landlords contents, you might leave some whiteware, dishwashers, fridges, washing machines, things like that. Stoves are a good one, because now a lot of the gas stoves are plug-in. A stove, if it's wired into a house, is deemed to be part of the house. If it plugs into the wall, it deems to be paid your contents. So that's another reason we also, if you've got your home and contents, just your own domestic home and contents, make sure it's with the same insurer, because there is gaps, and things like carpets, fixtures and fittings, you can end up with a hole if you have a massive claim. Small claims are fine, but it's when you're looking at total losses. Non-natural disaster. Now, everyone heard of earthquakes in Christchurch. The reinsurers paid a hell of a lot of money in New Zealand. I was at Vero when the earthquakes occurred. It's a shame the media love to beat up an old story. The Southern Response, just on a side note, Southern Response is in the media lately. That is from a failed company. If AMI had been allowed to stay, none of those customers would have got any money at all, because AMI was technically bankrupt. So Southern Response is not an insurance company, it's a government bailout which helps those people with policies that didn't exist. There was another company called Western Pacific that was based in Queenstown. They had a B- credit rating. He was a dodgy guy in Australia. He was allowed to fall, and none of his policyholders got any payouts because that wasn't enough to create damage to the economy. The double-edged or double whammy sword for them was then the rest of the insurance market shut down because they went, we don't know what we're dealing with, we've got a whole lot of houses that are damaged, so no one was writing new business. So those poor people didn't have an insurance policy and had nowhere to go to get another one. So a lot of them got stuck, but you don't hear things like that in the media. So non-natural disaster, rebuild house, Ando have gone back to a full square meterage basis. So that you have some insured of 650,000, it burns down, they'll pay out 700 if that's what it costs to rebuild. Vero, they do full replacement regardless of some insured. If there's a current valuation on file, and that can be the Cordell valuation, Cordell website. Some of you guys might have heard of it, go on and put your houses on there. As long as there's something on there, they'll commit to rebuilding it on regardless of the sum insured. The thought process behind it is you've gone through all reasonable steps to make sure your house is insured correctly, so they'll turn around and so they'll honour it. So that's pretty cool. Natural disaster. Now natural disaster is earthquake and volcanic eruption. It's not windstorm, it's not weather-related perils. Natural disaster is earthquake and volcanic eruption. And up to the sum insured, Vero will give you another 10% should you need it, which you probably will. The reason they have that is it's the reinsurers. When Christchurch happened, everyone's on a square meterage basis. They couldn't work out what their total maximum loss was. So remember, we have all these insurance companies, AMI, AA, State, Vero, all that in New Zealand. They have their own insurance companies, which are the reinsurances, which are Munich Re, Swiss Re, Gen Re, and a whole lot of others. So they have layers, and that's where AMI fell over. They tried to take too much of the top layer. Very boring insurance, if anyone wants to know, can talk to me. Abandonment by tenant. Now, if you guys, by the sound of it, have your property management here, you don't need this car. But we, through Vero, the landlord extension is up to 8 weeks. Again, you've got to check your warranties and your policies. The houses must be inspected regularly and it must be documented with references and so forth. You've got to do all due process to make sure you can't just put the tattooed guy on the bike and say, oh, now he's disappeared, can I have 8 weeks? So that's kind of some of the stuff that the other insurers will also be offering. But that's what you should be looking for when you look at your landlord covers. There we go. Touch that. There we go. These are some things that I've heard over my 30 years in insurance, plus also I'm a regular viewer of Fair Go. As soon as insurance comes up, I have a look to see what they're talking about. Accidental damage for carpets. Now, insurance accidental damage is per event. If everyone got a glass of wine here tonight, you drop a glass of wine in this room, you drop one in the back room, you drop one in the office, that's 3 events. So if you take a higher excess, that's an excess per room. Okay, it's like if I drop a glass here and then I stumble through the door, that's 2 events. Okay, if I drop my glass as I'm stumbling through the door, that's 1 event because it's 1 process. Any questions? This is where I thought it's probably really relevant because this is what catches a lot of people out. We try and drum it into our clients and they still get caught out. We've had an issue with a baby going loose in Manamatta, free, I don't want to say free, but basically nappy throughout the house. Unfortunately, what you can do is you can get away with a lounge in a hallway as long as it's not shut off. So be careful about shutting things off because then it becomes one area. So if you've got the lounge and the hallway going upstairs, you can actually get your carpet done for that whole area. You can't get the bedrooms, but you can get that one event. So the big thing is, if you have tenants that have parties, you've got malicious damage, but again, it's per event. So if they're causing issues throughout the house, every time something happens, it's a separate event. So just be careful of your excess. Gradual damage, normal small insured limits for breakage of internal water pipes. This is where there's a thing called ducts piping in the 80s. A lot of that pipe is breaking down through internal walls. It is an insurance claim, but because of, again, leaky buildings, most of the insurers have restricted their cover down to about $3,000 to $5,000. So you're not going to get a brand new wash house or a kitchen, you might get $3,000, $5,000. The caveat is where tenants we've had where they leave, they have the shower and they leave the bath mat and they can't be bothered picking it up and putting it on the towel rail, and all of a sudden the chipboard comes up. Okay, that's gradual damage and it's excluded under all policies. Okay, so the only gradual damage you get is the internal water pipes within the wall, and ducts piping if you've got 1980s homes is a bit of an issue. So again, wear and tear versus accidental damage. The wear and tear is not covered. Accidental damage has got to be sudden, violent and unforeseeable. So it's got to be an impact. It's got to be unforeseen. It can't be just a gradual windowsills rotting, but there's water damage because the water's coming in. You've got to be able to get on top of that. And water, forget about new homes, water is a massive, big issue with all homes. Intentional damage caused by people legally allowed at premises. You saw before that we had sublimits of up to 25 and 30,000. Now, one of the interesting things we've had, and sometimes your vetting may not pick this up, is you'll have mum and dad come and they give you a reference, but the son or the daughter or the child has some mental illnesses, okay, but ADHD, something, they go nuts, they go and kick holes in the walls and so forth. That's somebody that's legally residing in the home that's caused intentional damage. Okay, so it's just something to be aware of, you know. I don't want you to go and kick them all out, as long as they're on their medication, but it's something that I've seen over my 30 years, is it's the kids, it's not necessarily the guy on the bike, it's the kids that are in there that lose their control, lose their cool, they're legally residing in the home. So if they set fire to it, again, you're down to those 25, 30,000 limits. So you can check your policies to see if they have malicious damage by tenants, intentional damage. Another one, how long can the property be left vacant before you need to advise your insurer? Most of it's between 60 days and 90 days, so you've got no problems with Albany. And I presume Glenfield as well. Again, it's common sense. It's things like turning water taps off, turning electricity off, and getting to talking to your insurer or your broker to say, hey, look, I'm struggling, or you might turn around and say, well, I'm getting the tenants out and we're going to do some renovations. So you get the tenants out, then all of a sudden you start the process of going through the Resource Management Act, and 3 months can fly by pretty quickly. So again, it's just being aware, let them know, let your insurer or your broker. The good thing, a bit of a sales pitch for brokers, if you deal straight with an insurer, it's your responsibility to know all this stuff. If you deal with a broker, then it's their responsibility to make sure that you're up to date with it. Okay? So if the insurer says, but you never told me, and you go, well, you never asked, because you don't know what you don't know, then it's tough luck. If you deal with a broker and they forget to tell you this kind of stuff, you've actually got a professional negligence claim against that broker. Okay, so it's a bit of a, we sell on service, not necessarily with a decent product, but we don't deal with cheap. Another one, tradies. Who here has done some renovations in their properties? Anyone? Who's asked for a certificate of currency from your Sparky, from your builder, from your plumber, to make sure that they're actually got insurance cover? It's another thing that our tradies, every renewal we send them what's called a certificate of currency, so they can have it in their portfolio, and they can go to, I know property managers nowadays are asking those things, because we get asked, hey, my insurance is coming up for renewal and I've been asked for my new set of currency. It shows that they've actually got their liability cover. It's to cover the third-party damage that they may do to your property, so drilling holes, hitting the pipe, wiring up something, blowing something up, dropping windows, if you're changing a window, dropping it out onto the ground. But the other thing is also what's called statutory liability, and the lawyer here might be able to go on that a bit further. There was a thing called Cave Creek. Now, from the landlord right through property manager, everyone is responsible for whoever is doing any work on that site. It becomes a commercial building site. Okay, so it's just things to be aware of. It doesn't happen all the time, but I've had a tradesman, home handyman, changing some light fittings, slip off a ladder, and then straight through a glass door. Now, Osh came straight in to investigate the whole process. Who employed him, who requested him to be there, the whole lot went through, just to make sure. So, yes, ask for their general public liability, but also do they have statutory liability, which covers Resource Management Act, like all our stump grinders, tree fellers. Obviously, if you go cut down the Purakawa, then you might have some breaches there as well. Any questions on things that people aren't aware of? Okay. This is the new legislation that's come in. I think it's from the 27th of August. Limits the tenant's liability for careless damage in rental properties. About 5 years ago, it was understanding that the tenant was legally liable for any damage that they caused to the property, malicious or accidental. So if they had the fat fire in the kitchen, put the chips on, went to sleep, what would happen is under their, if they had a contents policy, the landlord's insurance policy would pay out to rebuild the kitchen, the house, then they would go after the tenant to seek subrogation off the tenant. If the tenant had a contents policy, they'd have what's called a Section 2 liability cover, which would protect them. So a lot of our, 5 years ago when we set up, a lot of our landlords, we made sure that the tenants had a contents policy to protect the tenant as well in the event of an accidental damage. A couple of years ago, there was a court case and the judge went, nah, if there's a policy in place, again like the car accident, you borrow my car, you crash it, if you cover under the policy, you can't seek subrogation. They've now come back a wee bit, and its minimum requirement, it's 4 weeks rent or the excess, whichever is the lesser. So if you have a $5,000 excess to keep your premiums down, you might find that you're still in the gun for some of that cost. What else have I got? Yeah, unlawful resident purposes such as garages, sleep outs. We also we did a lot of guys that bought, renovated and flipped. And a lot of our clients, they were in the South Auckland and the old garage, they were trying to turn into a legal second dwelling. Okay, so instead of the multi-box board, actually getting a proper board and stuff like that in there. Now, they're going to come down pretty hard on it. Give tenants the ability to enforce action against landlords who rent out properties who don't minimum requirements. Your insurance company and your insurance broker are worried about the building, not necessarily who's inside it. So that's a bit more. There it is there, if you want to have a quick read. Again, all that's doing is saying that it's 4 weeks market rent or the landlord's insurance excess, whichever is the lower. Okay? So that's all your home insurer can go after the tenant for. Okay. Any questions?
No, I see a few people shaking their heads at that.
Yeah. It's again, with all our clients, we like to identify the risks up front, let people know what can happen, and then how to mitigate some of the uninsurable risks as well. And when you're thinking about excesses, you've got to be thinking about this as well.
So if you're looking at the excess, would you not calculate it basically on your rent times 4?
Yeah.
Being what your liability you're trying to cover?
The sweet spot on a rental property excess that we've found is about $1,000. $1,000 covers stupidity, the carpet cleaner coming in, cleaning it up, because remember you've also got bond as well. So you can get 2.5 and 5 and 10 grand excesses nowadays. We've worked out the discounts for those higher excesses just aren't really worth it. The sweet spot is 1,000, saying that if you've got your average rent is 500, you've got 2 grand, so your $1,000. And it's also, I mean, your tenants are renting because they can't afford a house, most of them, so how much money are they really going to have sitting in the bank? And that's just a bit of us. Started the business 5 years ago with just me from scratch. Sharon is basically our general manager, and we've got Kristen, her sole focus is domestic insurance. She lives and breathes it. We send out notices to our clients 6 weeks early to say, hey, your house is coming up, or your insurance is coming up. Has anything changed that we should be aware of? Before we even talk about pricing and renewals and stuff like that, we want to make sure that what we're covering is what has happened over your 12 months. lifespan, since the policy's first took out. That's us. Any questions?
Sharon, my wife, or your sister?
My wife. Okay, cool.
Thanks, mate. Very good. I learned something. That's nice, Beck's rag. Now, I find Bex is way more exciting than an insurance broker or a lawyer because she's the one who gets you the money. Yeah. I'll just leave it Beck. Go for it.
So, okay, am I just going?
Just click it or make sure it's switched on. Just check. Technically, alright, make sure it's not. That's right, you just keep doing your thing, you keep talking over again.
Okay, so hi, I'm Becky from Low Market. I've been, just to give you a bit of my background, I've been working with Loan Market for the last 6 years. I've actually been in the finance industry for the last 18, coming up 19 years, so in banking and also mortgage advisory roles. I became a broker because I was sick and tired of banks trying to put people in boxes and try and say, hey, look, you're going to fit here, you're going to tick all these boxes, we won't offer you funding otherwise. I'm a can-do person. I'm always trying to find a way to skin a cat and try and look after your interests as well with what we're looking to do. Under loan market, we've got approximately about 120 to 130 advisors under loan market, and we're selling about $2.5 billion worth of loans on an annual basis. So we're quite established with one of the major broker and advisory firms in New Zealand, and we've got a good range of lenders that we deal with. So we deal with over 30 different lenders, main banks as well as non-bank lenders as well. I thought it would be really good. There's a lot of stuff happening in the market, and I wanted to cover off 3 areas, which is funding, interest rates, and advice. There's been a lot of changes in the market over the last 6 months, especially around interest rates, what's happening, and also changes as well around getting the right advice. Okay, so to kick off with funding, I thought I would just recap on LVR restrictions and what the LVR loan-to-value restrictions are at the moment for property investors. So currently, as an investor, if you are looking to buy an investment property that's an existing property older than 12 months old, through main bank channels, we can go up to 70% LVR. Okay, if it is a new build, so a house under construction or a turnkey, we can go up to 80%. But we've also got some non-bank options that have come to the market, some white-collar lenders out there that are really offering some good interest rates, good pricing and stuff, and not necessarily having to pay non-bank finance rates or fees, etc. And then really bridge the gap where we can do up to 80% on existing investment properties on a standalone basis. What that will do is it will help you with your cash flow. So, say for example, I've got some clients that are looking to buy an investment property. They've got a fairly high loan on their current owner-occupied property, and they want to pull out as minimal cash flow or equity from their current property to go on to the next property. So we might go down a non-bank lender option where we can minimise what they're having to contribute for their purchase. Okay, rates have been really affordable, especially given the current market. So we're looking at a 4.5% interest rate, potentially for some of their non-bank up to 80% loan-to-value ratio options for clients. That can be really good. In regards to interest rates, cost of money is really, really good at the moment. So I did a scenario for a client. They're looking to buy an investment property, looking to borrow around about that 550 mark. Based on the current interest rate sitting around that 3.5%. If we're looking at what the cost of that would be on an interest-only period, would be about $380 per week, and versus what they're getting for rent after they pay those maintenance, property management fees, or any other rates and insurances. They're actually getting quite close to covering everything. So the cost of them for their property was actually not going to cost them as a landlord. Okay, so that's some good things that are happening out there. In regards to interest rates, we've got an announcement coming up on the 25th of September. So there was a decrease on the 7th means is your holding costs are going to be, so for having your property investments and stuff like that, what your contribution to that will reduce significantly. And in regards to your deposit rate, so I just thought in regards to investing rates, what we're finding is people are not necessarily keeping money in the bank where they used to. They are actually starting to look at their options and go, hey, look, I've got this money sitting in the bank, I'm probably only getting it 2.5% interest, less my tax and what have you. Is it worthwhile me looking at going, okay, well, what is, I've got this deposit, what kind of mortgage can I get with rentals and stuff like that? So we're seeing a bit more activity starting to come into play with people looking at these options of getting into property investment. Okay. So advice, any questions? No? So I can slow down if I'm racing through it. No? Advice. So, getting the right advice is really important, and quite often with our clients we'll sit down and we'll look at interest only versus principal and interest options for your properties, whether it be owner occupier and investment properties. In regards to any investment lending, 9 times out of 10 it's on interest only. Reason being is that your property investment is a good debt because you're generating an income, whereas your owner occupier is not generating an income, so it's a bad debt, so you want to try and pay that down as fast as possible. I do work quite closely with accountants, so what happens is when I'm meeting with a client and we're looking at your investment options and doing the lending, we'll sit down and we'll do a bit of a structure and talk about, what's the borrowing entity going to be depending on what your situation is, and just talking you through some of the options to then go back to your accountant to make sure you're getting the right advice and having the right structure, so you're not getting any tax implications or anything like that in the future, because that can actually get a bit of curveballs that might pop up come time when you go to do something else, and it's about us trying to restructure or rejiggle everything to get it set up correctly. When we're doing principal and interest, so principal and interest is mainly with your owner-occupier properties, unless you've got no mortgage on your family home and you're wanting to look at paying down some of your investment property debt as well. All of our main bank lenders as well as non-bank lenders will look at these options as well, provided it fits within the criteria. And also, what we're finding as well is we've got a lot of clients going from having an owner-occupied property going, okay, rates are really good, there's some good buyers out there, it's not going to cost me much to step out, step up to the next property. I've got my existing family home, which I think I might hold on to, and look at buying another house. We may have a change in structure of the ownership of that current property when you are looking to make the move, if you're expecting to retain that property. So once again, we would talk you through that and also get you to sit down with your accountant and possibly a lawyer just to get the right advice on the structure so there's no nasty things that pop up in the future. And also we're getting the lending sitting appropriately for each of the entities as well. And also just why you'd use a mortgage advisor. So once again, we deal with over 30 plus lenders. We will sit there and we talk about what your goals are, what your plans are, try to figure out where the best structure is, what you're looking to do just to try and maximise your options for the future. As you're aware, we deal with different lenders, so we're always comparing apples with apples. So try and push the banks around a little bit, take the emotional pressure, like the emotional side of it out for you, so you know that someone's out there to back for you as well. And just getting that advice piece. Think of us as a bit of a buffer between you and the banks, so you might talk or bounce some ideas around with us, we can sit there and give you a bit of feedback, and then from there we can look at going and presenting your application to the bank the appropriate way. Whereas if you're going to the bank, you're telling them something, they record everything, and it might not necessarily be your best position going forward for the future. Yeah. So that's it. But do you have any questions at all?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay.
Who pays for your service?
Who pays for my service? So my service is free. How we get paid is once your loan draws down, the banks will pay us a commission, or sometimes the non-bank lenders will pay us a commission. There are times where you may have to charge a fee, but it's always upfront. It's normally only, we discuss it upfront, and it's normally if we're only going through a non-conforming lender that we charge a fee. Yeah. So I don't like to charge fees at all. I would prefer the banks pay me than it comes out of your pocket. Yeah. Any other questions?
Does anybody in the room still have a relationship with a bank and they prefer just to go back to their own bank the next time they need finance? Or do you all use brokers?
Bank.
Because, you know, I sort of grew up in an environment where we had relationships with our banks, and I thought I had a relationship with a bank after many years, and then I found out that I actually only had a relationship with that person at the bank, and then once they've gone, you're just a number. I actually, when I refinance or buy another property, I may even stick with the same bank, but I go back to Bex and get her to do the application for that, even though that's with my current bank and I'm quite happy to stay with them. She will do the application to refinance with that bank or to get me more money to buy the next property. And the bank rang me up once and said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Because she's fabulous, we have a great relationship and I'm not going to mess with that." They didn't really have any complaint at all, other than they just didn't like it because they were going to have to pay her a fee. But what I find is that it keeps the banks honest. So, you know, and what I found is that even you think you've got a good relationship with your own bank, and you go to your bank and say, "Right, we've got 1.5 million that needs refinancing and we'd like another 800,000 to buy another investment property," you think that they would want to do the best deal to keep their existing customer happy. But in fact, it's the reverse, and they tend to rest on their laurels, and they've got you, so they don't need to sharpen their pencil too much to keep you. And then last time I did that, it was quite some time ago, but last time I did that, they sent me the new rate, and then I went, well, I think they've forgotten what industry I'm in. We talk to salespeople and brokers all the time. We know what deals other people are getting. And I think they're just hoping that I was an average punter that didn't know what deals other people were getting. And so it was a big eye-opener for me. And so then, of course, straight back to the broker and go, is this competitive? And this was back in the day before I met Bex, and Sharon just went, no. So I just handed it all back and said, okay, you go do it. And the rate came out much better. And so you may stay with your current bank and you may be quite happy with that, but working through someone like Bex will keep that bank honest, and the rate that you get will be the rate that they are using to attract new customers in, not resting on their laurels and making you pay more. And every 0.1 is a big deal in my book. It's either going to be in your pocket or the bank's pocket. Easy choice. So I do not do anything without a broker these days.
Just following on from that then as well, some things that what we find out quite often is that you'll go to your bank, you'll do something, and they'll end up getting all your lending, they'll put everything together. So you might have multiple properties, they'll cross-securitize it, so putting it all together. Come time, you go, okay, I should sell that property and buy another property. We hear it time and time again, they go to the bank and the bank goes, okay, well, if you sell that property, we want you to pay down more of your debt, which then affects your capital going forward for what you want to do. So I guess what we're trying to do is trying to empower you, give you more advice and stuff like that, and just talk about what you can and can't do. Give you the options so you're safeguarding yourself, not just now, but for the future of what you're looking to do. So it might be introducing multiple banks. Let's make the banks be honest, you know, have the power where if you decide you want to flip that property, you've got the option. You're not going to be calling and losing some of your capital. When it comes to interest rates, we can play them off as well, and just keeping everything separate. Like the other thing that you've got to be mindful as well is if you're having everything cross-securitized with one bank, say for example your tenant does damage or shifts out and you're not getting rent, the mortgage is not getting paid or what have you, that's actually tarnishing the relationship on your own mortgage as well. So it's something to be really aware of. So by keeping them split across multiple banks, it just keeps everything arm's length, so you're getting a bit of protection as well. Yeah. What else can I say? Interest rates have come down. Yeah.
At the bottom here.
Like next week, what do you reckon?
Well, the Reserve Bank governor thinks you might have negative interest rates in the foreseeable future. So, I mean, you know, it's a weird economic environment, right? I mean, we've got, since the global financial crisis, we've had world awash with money. They printed money and pumped it back in to keep the world going. And you'd think you'd have inflation from that, which causes rising interest rates, but we've had the opposite. So that means that no one can predict really what's going to happen.
There's a Scandinavian bank that's offering negative interest rates. I don't know how it works.
It works that you want to put your money in the bank, you've got to pay the bank to put the money in there.
No, but they're giving mortgages on a negative.
On negative interest rate.
Yeah.
So
Not
actually,
money in the bank.
it costs the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they must have
Cost
fees
you.
or something.
Yeah.
It's interesting territory and it's very active at the moment. Like if I went through the time of being brokering and stuff like that, we've actually been quite consistent. So you're finding that people are out there, they're actually buying, get a lot of people active at the moment. Cost of money is really cheap. In regards to structures and stuff, just to give you a few tips on structures, with all the changes with the OCR, people are floating at the moment, so we're going to see a bit more of that floating just until things start to bottom out. We're doing floating rates at around about 4.5%. So it's, only it's dropped right down, which, when you look at a scenario for a client where we did their loans, we did their full loan for them, they had owner occupier and investment property. We only had a really short settlement day to get the loan to settle on the new property, the new owner occupied property. Just while they give themselves time to sort out the appropriate loan structure so we can split everything up, we've just floated everything, and it is about 0.95% higher, so under 1% higher than a fixed rate, but the cost of them is only actually $100, $116 a week when they're lending. But in the scheme of things, by being able to have it just sitting there floating, potentially after the 25th, the rate's going to drop down, so they're going to be getting on cheaper rates, but also it's about getting the structure right. So yes, there might be a slight cost to do what they're doing, but overall it's going to benefit in the long run.
Yeah, exactly right. I've got three mortgages that have come off fixed. I've got three mortgages that have come off fixed, and it's the only time in my life I remember being happy to leave them on floating and being happy to pay that little bit extra because they're on floating rather than rushing out and looking for the next fixed rate. And there's quite a big sum sitting there at the moment on floating, costing just under 1% more. But then again, just under 1% more is still only 4.5%, right?
I've done the same thing before the 7th of August, the last OCR announced. I broke everything, it's just sitting there, just waiting, and I'll wait probably till, a few more months, and then I'll just look at fixing it all in once the rates bottom out a little bit further.
Well, Clive's going to be real brave and he's going to leave a whole lot until that bank is paying him to have a mortgage. But I quite like the idea of the bank paying me to buy a rental property. Seems like a nice idea, doesn't it? A little bit of a subsidy from the bank. Get back some of the interest you've been paying for. How long have you been a landlord, Clive?
Forever. Years now.
Thanks, Bex. Met Bex a few years ago and best mortgage broker I've ever used, hands down. Very, very happy. And part of tonight isn't just giving you information. You'll get the idea that we know some really, really good people. Lawyers, insurance brokers, mortgage brokers, and what we try to do for our clients is to make sure that if you need other things around your property, not just property management, but other things around it, we know the right people for you to use, and hopefully we can save you money and save you some pain by putting you in touch with the right people. And on that note, speaking of the right people, Mr. Cannon.
Don't get an introduction.
I'm about to do your introduction.
I can introduce myself.
We've saved the most exciting, because everybody loves lawyers, right? So we've saved the most exciting for last. Nick is the partner at Sharrington in Milford. He's the big
Takapuna.
Sorry, you've moved. Of course you've moved. He's in Takapuna now. He's the big kahuna there, and I've known Nick for, I don't know, you tell me, but horrible number of years, 30 years or something.
Yeah, we're in nappies on me, I think.
Yeah, and but he does all my personal law work, and we've put him onto a number of clients, and he really looks after our clients. And it's really nice that when you've got one of our clients has got a legal problem, that and we're dealing with your property, and Nick's dealing with your property, that him and I talk a lot, and it keeps the bill down, and it's useful. You're up.
No, thanks. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I think I've known Glenn. If you really want to know the bare facts, we were
No one needs to know.
flipping burgers together back in McDonald's as managers in McDonald's in Shore City and then Belmont. That was 30 years ago, wasn't it? Really? And we've just stayed in touch for 30 years, and he does this now. I do my thing, and it's we've kind of met up again in business sense, and it's been fantastic. And so yeah, it's good. So I think, look, I came here a couple of weeks ago and spoke to a sellers evening, and I think when I was looking at the work for my presentation, I guess my speech tonight or whatever, I got a bit freaked out because I thought, man, what the government's proposing in terms of changes to residential tenancies is really going to up the ante, if that's the right word, in terms of what a landlord is required to do, all the obligations on a landlord. They're going to ramp up. They're going to make it a much more, I guess, serious proposition, being a residential tenancy landlord. And I think, when I was looking at it, I thought, well, and I said this to Glenn tonight, that it really is, in my view, and this is not just a selling plug for Glenn and his team, but it really is a mugs game. I think if you're a residential property landlord going into a new environment in a year or so's time, when the Act changes and the new stuff comes in, that you're trying to manage the property yourself. Because I think with all of the obligations you're going to have, we just heard tonight with the healthy homes and insulation, heat pumps and all the penalties that can be enforced, the insurance obligations that that tenants are going to have and all that stuff, and now changes to Residential Tenancies Act, and they're going to bring about a whole lot more onerous obligations on landlords, and that's for I guess genuine reasons, but it's going to mean that the job of a professional landlord, if that's the right word, in a residential property is going to be quite tough, and I just think that if you're taking on a $800,000, $600 million property, or whatever it is these days in Auckland, putting in tenants, you've got to hand the work over to someone who knows what they're doing and to look after that property yourself. So I just think if you're trying to do that stuff in a new world order, you're going to run into problems. So let's just talk about a couple of aspects of residential property investment. The first, I guess, is and I'm not an accountant, although I've done a few economics papers at university. The first is kind of tax, I suppose, and we started about, 4 or 5 years ago, even longer, in John Key's reign, where they slowly started to ramp down the advantages of owning residential property through what they called loss attributed qualifying companies, then LAQCs. They changed the name to a look-through company, which was essentially the same thing, but didn't offer quite the same advantages. Then they took away the ability to claim depreciation against the residential investment. So they're slowly through there, and now what they're doing is, of course, they're ring-fencing losses against residential property investments in separate companies. If you own a property in a separate company, the loss is ring-fenced, and you cannot attach that loss to your personal income. So what I'm seeing a bit these days is investors buying residential properties and forming family trusts or trusts to own the property, and that's because the loss in the trust can be built up, and you can keep that loss building up and building up and building up. And of course, trusts are a very good mechanism. They exist now for a perpetuity period, which means the period for which a trust can operate under is 120 years. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be around for 120 years, and you're going to own a residential property for 120 years, but the ability of trusts to build up tax losses and then to use those losses during the years when the property might start to turn a profit is going to be reasonably beneficial to some owners. And so we're seeing a slight change from away from look-through companies towards trusts. That comes with its own problems, and that is the new Trusts Act, which came in about a month ago, which applies in 2020, I think August next year, which is going to put a whole lot more obligations on trustees of trust, which will create a different problem. All this stuff, by the way, is fantastic for lawyers, right? So if anyone thinks lawyers are going to be out of the job with all this automation going on, you only just need politicians to pass all these laws. It just keeps us working 7 days a week. So trusts, in terms of a tax position, slightly better. That I think I'm seeing a bit of a change away from companies going into trusts to enable the tax losses to be accrued, but that comes with its own problems in that trusts will come under a lot more scrutiny under the law very shortly. The second part of it, I think, is the changes to Residential Tenancies Act, and I've got to preface this by saying the changes at the moment are only out there as a discussion document. So the government has said, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and they put out a paper I think feedback closes next month, October, and they propose in that paper a few changes, and they want everybody to, to discuss and to consult on it and give their feedback on it. But I think anyone who's got a modicum of common sense will know that the government's pretty much made up its mind on what it wants to do, because they forecasted it during the last election campaign and everything else. So, but the discussion document forecasts some relatively important changes that probably will be made in residential tenancies. And the first one, I can just talk about a few. The first one is they are looking at giving a minimum term to fixed term tenancies. They haven't talked about what that minimum term is yet. It could be 12 months. They're also talking about having automatic rights of renewal for residential tenants and fixed term tenancies, just like commercial leases, where you take a commercial lease on for 3 or 4 years and rights of renewal of 2 lots of 2 years. They're looking at doing the same thing for residential tenancies, and the purpose of that is they're seeing falling home ownership, and because of it, particularly in Auckland with rising unaffordability of houses and what have you in property, they're seeing falling home ownership rates, so they want to protect tenants in a bit better state. So they're looking at automatic rights of renewal for fixed term tenancies. In terms of periodic tenancies, they are looking at, and again I'll say a lot of this with they're looking at requiring the landlord to have a valid, I suppose, or reasonable reason for terminating a periodic tenancy. And they haven't said, of course, at the moment what that might be. But at the moment, of course, you can just sort of give the notice 90 days and your tenancy is over. That will change. You'll have to give a valid, reasonable reason for the tenancy to end. In terms of the time periods, at the moment, if you're selling a property and you have to give, I think, 42 days notice, that's being extended, looking at being extended to 90 days. So that's going to impact on a lot of your vendors who are selling, or if you're selling yourself properties. You won't be able to complete the settlement of that sale if it's vacant possession until 3 months after the agreement signed, because they're looking at changing the 42 days to 90 to allow tenants more time to find properties to rent if the property they're in is sold or being used by a family member. Let's look at rents. They're looking at taking away or prohibiting rental bidding wars, so they're fixing rents to an extent in that regard. So you won't be able to, if there's 5 or 6 interested parties into a property, each bid each other up for the rent. They're saying no, the rent will have to be capped in that regard. They're looking at capping rental increases in a 12-month period, so just one rental increase in a 12-month period. What else are they doing? Maintenance. Now, interestingly, they're looking at allowing a tenant to make minor modifications to a rental property with the landlord's consent, but if the consent is not withheld or objected to within 21 days, then it's deemed to be approved. So again, this is another reason I spoke to before, where I said, you need to use a manager who's on top of these things. So once the notice is given and 21 days starts ticking, if you're sitting on a beach in Bali or something, and you think, I'm away for 6 weeks and my tenant's paying the rent in their suite, and they suddenly issue a notice, I just want to knock the bathroom out and put in a new bathroom, and you don't react to it within 21 days, they can go ahead and do it. But that's the proposal, as I say. So it's those sorts of things that they're looking at doing. And what else am I talking about here?
If you scare them too much, they'll all sell their properties and we won't have a rent roll.
Well, no. What I'm trying to do is is go back to what I said at the very start, that it's going to turn the game of residential property investment. It's going to up the ante a bit, and it's going to mean that residential landlords, I think, are going to have to, unless they've got a lot of time to commit to actually attending to all these matters that are going to arise, and we heard about the insurance one before. They're going to, my advice would be to use professionals and to pay someone to do the job for you. Take it off your chest, basically. Okay, that's pretty much all I kind of had on the top of my head to talk. I mean, there's a few changes also around pets. They're going to make specific provisions and tenancy agreements around pets and cleaning of carpets. If you've got pets, etc. But those are I guess the main changes they're looking at that could affect markedly the way a residential tenancy is looked at. Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
No questions?
Yeah, I'll finish handing these out in a second. like I said before, we endeavour to surround you with good people so that you get good information, and when things go wrong, we've got the right people to talk to. Cool. I'm going to hand out some more landlord, these are our landlord information guides, which I was supposed to hand out before, for you. I hope you enjoyed, you got some information, got some info. You've met Mark now, part of the family. Don't feel that you have to rush off, everybody's sticking around. There's heaps of food, there's plenty of drink, but all of our people are here for you to ask questions if you've got individual questions you want to ask. So get into it, tap them on the shoulder and ask them some questions. But from Lauren and myself and Mark, thanks for coming. And there's some ones that we haven't met before, because we don't always get to meet the landlords as soon as we start managing the property. And really nice to meet you guys, and thanks for coming.
Tell something about the executive fee that's to better understand how.
Letting fees?
Yeah, how.
Let's bring Lauren up, 'cause she knows